Okay, nice. Right, is that going? Yeah, it is. Okay. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us to talk all about your career in music theatre and all of that kind of stuff. Really interested to hear what you have to say. I'll just hand straight over to you, and then maybe we can get to know everyone else as well and answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So, how are you doing today?
Today's been busy.
Is it?
Yeah, but can't complain about that. Made the day go quicker, that's for sure. How about you?
It's been all right. Yeah, it's been okay. Apart from the last 10 minutes, it was going very well until the last 10 minutes. So I apologize if I drop out. It's either my Wi-Fi's gone again or my phone's run out of battery. So I might actually run and go and get a plug so it doesn't do that. Yeah. So anyway, over to you. Let's enjoy. Let me stop this screen share. There we are.
Hey, yes. I've got Sarah, Kate, and Georgina. Is that right? Thank you very much, Neil, and the Music Centre for having me. Like, this is really nice because I had a little chat with Neil earlier on in the week, and was a student at Winchester now. I started in September, and I'm doing a course that's quite different to what I've done before now. Opportunity for me also to meet you guys and, you know, kind of connect that way as well, because, you know, we are all isolated. We are all kind of in our bedrooms or wherever, which is very strange for theatre, that's for sure. So yeah, that's a great thing for me to get from this too. If you wanted to, I've got the chat open, or if you want to kind of like unmute yourself or whatever, it'd be really nice just to say hi, and what has led you to musical theatre maybe, or if you even, what your kind of interests are. So maybe Sarah, if you want to go first.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kate. I'm a third year musical theatre student at Winchester. I don't think there's anything else that makes me feel more alive than doing live theatre. So yeah, my passion, before I did musical theatre at uni, I was into a lot of media study and like film, but then I decided to like cross my fingers and like do a leap of faith into theatre because it was the one thing I really wanted to do. So yeah, and who knows what's going to happen after I graduate as well. So anyways.
And I'm guessing you're not from the UK, you're from somewhere else?
I've actually lived here 10 years, so I well versed in West End.
Great. I've just seen, hi Vicky, you've just joined us, and Georgina, are you there? Do you want to say hi? You don't have to say hi if you don't want to.
Hello. Sorry, I can't turn my camera on for some reason, but nice to meet you.
If you're on a musical theatre course, or what you're kind of, if you wanted to, you don't have to, you can just say hi if you like.
Hi. Sorry, I'm having problems with my Wi-Fi, so I don't really listen to anything. I will try and join again in a minute.
Seems to be catching Wi-Fi problems, so that's totally fine. Okay, well, I'll start off then with a little bit about me and, you know, the present day, I suppose. So I grew up in Bournemouth, which is not too far from Winchester, and coincidentally, that's where I've ended up now. But I kind of, as most people probably do, went to child as kind of a childcare thing for my mum. I think she just knew that I was always kind of singing around and stuff like that. So that was kind of the natural thing to put me into. And actually, when I was growing up, I was obsessed, because I grew up in the 90s, I was obsessed with like female pop singers. So I would spend so much time copying like Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, and I've realised that me and Christina Aguilera are very, very different people, very different singers, that's for sure. So luckily when I went to secondary school, when I was kind of from about 11 years onwards, I was really lucky with the school that I went to, and we actually had a performing arts department. I don't know if it still exists now, because you know, I left there like nearly 10 years ago. And I was so lucky that I had some really fantastic teachers that were extremely encouraging. You know, we had some incredible musical, you know, we did things like Les Mis, Cabaret, We Will Rock You, which for me at like 14 years old, I was like, this is the best thing ever. So yeah, when I was obviously 18, and I auditioned for lots of drama schools, but I didn't get in anywhere my first year. So I took singing lessons, I worked in a cafe, and to a school called, it was called me. I don't know if it's actually still called that anymore.
Sorry, Alex, you're kind of cutting in and cutting out. Do you have another microphone you can use? Because it might be that, I'm not sure.
Is that better?
We'll let you know. Yeah.
It might be because I was using my headphones. Let's try again. So yeah, I went to a school called the American Musical Theatre Academy. I went there for a year, and that was kind of like a intense, like, learn everything I can, especially in regards to dance. Like, I was not a dancer at all. You know, I'd never been to any kind of dance classes, and they definitely put me through my paces while I was there. And when I left there, I found myself in a situation where I felt like I'd learned a lot about myself and what I could do, but I hadn't necessarily learned a lot about the industry itself. And whilst I was there, I had a singing teacher who said to me, oh, you know, I don't suppose you've ever thought about kind of studying somewhere else afterwards, maybe. And in my head, I thought, oh gosh, you know, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. And he said, well, why don't you try out for the Royal Academy of Music? You know, I went there, give it a go. So that's what I did. And they've got a 1-year musical theatre programme. It's a master's now, but it was a diploma at the time. And so I auditioned for there. I didn't audition for anywhere else. And I kind of thought, well, let's just see how it goes, which that sounds really arrogant. I mean, I did get in, but I'm not like, oh, you know, just try it, see how it goes. You know, oh, if I get in, maybe. Like, it was a Royal Academy of Music. It was a pretty big deal to me, really. But so yeah, I got in, and I kind of spent a lot of time raising money to go there, working a lot. Kind of, I was lucky enough, I got a bit of a scholarship as well. And yeah, so that's where I kind of spent the second year of my training, and by which point I think I was 20 by the time I went there. And if I thought my first year at the American Musical Theatre Academy was hard, like, this was a whole nother level. Like, this was, you know, 8 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. Sundays, we'd have rehearsals for whatever concert we were kind of gearing up to. But at the same time, it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. You know, I don't know if I'll ever experience anything as good as that again, because we got to work with some incredible people. We got to meet some amazing people. And, you know, all the stuff that I didn't have in terms of like the industry knowledge, that's kind of what I got there. And then from there, we had our showcase and everything, much like I guess you guys will as third years. And I was hoping for agent interest, and I much found myself in the position where actually I didn't have anyone contact me. I was kind of left to my own devices to kind of see how I could kind of get an agent from there. And it just so happened by chance that when it came to our shows, which was after showcase, my friend's agent came to see her, who she'd already signed with. And as a result of that, I emailed her and she said, yep, let's have a meeting. We met up and I signed with her. Then from there, you know, it was a bit of a, not bumpy ride. I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to say, but it was certainly not the situation where, you know, some fantastic people go to so many different drama schools and universities or whatever, and they graduate and they get a job straight away. You know, they're straight into the cast of Les Mis, or they're straight into the cast of Wicked. And I actually found myself in a situation where I couldn't even get auditions for those kind of jobs. You know, I think I had one audition for, they were doing a production of Into the Woods in Manchester, and I would audition for Little Red. And that was like the first audition I had straight out of drama school. And I was like, oh, this is quite cool, you know. And then after that, it was just like, you know, nothing. And I don't think I was really like ready for that, to be honest. That's something that we weren't really prepared for. You know, I was quite lucky that I worked quite hard while I was at RAM, but I also kind of had a lot of benefits in that I got a lot of opportunities. You know, I got leading roles in the shows. I was, whenever there was opportunities to sing for special guests or whatever, I'd found myself getting picked. You know, we had a cabaret that I was chosen for. So I was kind of like, oh gosh, like this is actually really hard. And I know that sounds really stupid to say, but it was really quite difficult when I first left, seeing friends kind of say to me, oh, I've got an audition for this. Are you getting seen for it? I've got an audition for that. And me going, oh, no, I didn't even actually know they were happening, but you know. And it kind of was a little bit like that for the first, I don't know, 6 months maybe. And I actually found myself having auditions for things that were kind of a bit different, shall we say. You know, I auditioned for things like the Royal Opera House, for example. They were putting on operas and ballets, and they needed actors to kind of like move around set, essentially. And I would audition for like, I think they call them like supernumeraries. I don't know if that's the right expression, but like things like that. And really wacky things like that, you know, things like Disneyland Paris. And, you know, they're amazing jobs, but I've just kind of found myself in like so many wacky situations. And it really wasn't what I was expecting until I had an audition for, they were doing a workshop for the Calendar Girls. And I don't know if you know, it's probably quite old, the film now, but they'd made the Calendar Girls movie into a musical. And I had an audition to play an understudy for the main girl, who was like, I think she was probably about 14 or 15 years old, the character was. And I auditioned for that and didn't get the job. And so I kind of thought to myself, okay, what do I need to do now? And randomly, out the blue, a few months later, I had another audition for the same show, but it was for a different part. And that was my job, which was the Calendar Girls in the West End. And they transferred it, but they'd actually said to my agent, which I didn't know at the time, that I was too old for the part when they were auditioning for it in the workshop stages. But when it came to coming to the West End, they were like, okay, well, actually we need somebody to audition for understudy for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 different roles. And in the end, that was my first kind of West End job. And I was a swing in that, kind of covering like, I think I counted it up, it was about 13 parts altogether. I mean, of varying kind of responsibilities, you know, 4 or 5 were like lead roles, a couple were kind of ensemble members. And then from then on, I kind of was lucky enough to kind of get a little bit more experience under my belt, doing things like the show that you've seen the picture in the beginning, that was Show Tune, that was at the Union Theatre. And then up until last March, when I was working in Germany in Sweeney Todd. And then the pandemic hit, obviously, and that kind of everything. So that kind of gave me the chance to kind of think like, okay, well, you know, I kind of thought back to when I first graduated, and I thought, you know, it's not something that I'm prepared to give up for sure, but it's something that I think, you know, I could do something else with. And like I said, when I went to RAM, it was a diploma. It wasn't a degree. It wasn't a master's or anything. So I didn't have that piece of paper to say, you've got a qualification. So what I wanted to do is eventually start working in universities and working in drama schools and teach there. But unfortunately, like I said, without that piece of paper, I'm not able to kind of move on to the next stage. So that's what's kind of brought me here to Winchester. I'm going to do my degree in education and English, and then hopefully go off, kind of do other things as well. So actually, I just realized I talked for ages, and that was a really roundabout way of saying that's what I've been doing, but hey, there you go. So I think the next kind of thing to go on to, we kind of got, is it, you're in 3rd year, aren't you, Sarah Kate? Is that right? What about everyone else? Are they kind of, are Are you on musical theatre courses as well, or are you doing other things and then musical theatre is your interest? You can type in the chat if you want to, you don't have to kind of unmute.
I am doing acting, and I'm in my first year, but I really like musical theatre and I would like to work in the industry.
Okay, fab. And Georgina?
I'm first year musical theatre.
Musical theatre, okay, fab, great. Well, then this will be kind of applicable to you guys as well, and Sarah. Can I ask, Sarah, have you got a showcase? How is that kind of working? Sarah Kate, sorry.
So I remember last year, the year before me, they did their show and it got completely canceled. So they didn't get to like put on any of the show that they rehearsed. And it was a very sad day for them. I remember like tears streaming. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen next year. So what we're doing is that we're writing our own musical.
Oh,
it's going to take place on like a Zoom chat like this.
Cool.
So yeah, it's going to be like very dystopian and very, well, I guess everything is dystopian right now, technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're kind of getting into music, into scripts, and trying to do it all online. But
that's really, really cool, actually. We had a little module like that when we were at RAM, and that's one of the like most fun and interesting things that I think we did the whole time, because it's a time where you can actually just be completely bonkers if you really want to, you know, kind of as much as you want something good to come out of it at the end, you've got the time and the space to be like, okay, what can we do? What can we kind of make from this? So are you using original music or music that already exists?
It's all original music. It's a completely original piece.
Okay.
Yeah, and both of our lecturers are like composing and book writing as well.
Fantastic. That's amazing. That's really, really cool. I wish that we had something, because actually we did a similar thing to that, but we had to incorporate songs from like, I don't know, random musicals that already existed. So that's amazing. Okay, so what I'll kind of talk about then is, I mean, obviously it's quite hard because, you know, this year and last year was so different to what you would normally expect from kind of your graduate life and going into the industry. So I mean, I guess you guys are kind of well versed in the normal, like getting headshots and all of that kind of stuff, you know, already know kind of what you're doing with that. So maybe the next thing to talk about then is kind of like how you would go through the kind of different avenues of what you might want to do next. So for example, like the first thing, like I had a showcase, had our shows, and wanted to get an agent. So we were lucky in the sense that like we had situations where the agents did come to us, but like I said, in my case, that was great, but it didn't necessarily really help me that much. You know, I didn't really have anybody interested in me from showcase and shows. So taking that step to writing to people is the kind of probably the most important skill you can kind of learn, maybe in general, actually, for like after you graduate and well into kind of your career, because I don't know, you might be in a situation where you are with an agent and you love them and you're getting on great and you stay with them for the whole of your working career, and that's fantastic, you know, and that might happen and that's amazing. But you might also find yourself in situations where you might want to either change direction with your career, you might want to move into something different, or I don't know, just the relationship isn't necessarily, you're not necessarily getting what you want from that relationship. So it's important to kind of put yourself out there and, you know, email people. That's the most I can say. You know, you want to get as much material as you can as possible. And that's what's actually fantastic about, you know, one of the good things about you being able to do this Zoom musical at the end of the year is that, you know, I assume it's going to be recorded and you can take that and you can use that as a show reel, you know, and you have that, you know, file to attach to your email with your headshots, with your CV, and they can instantly see you do something. Because the amount of times that I've spoken to agents and emailed them and they have said, yeah, fantastic, that's great. What can we see you in? What show can we come and see you in? And if you're not in a show at the time, it's a bit of a like kind of vicious cycle where you're like, okay, well, I'm not in a show. I need an agent to get into a show. So how do I kind of work around that? So actually that's fantastic that you will have that to take with you. And, you know, some people ask for, I had an agent before ask me, can you just send me like self-tapes of you singing, a couple of those? And they're great, but, you know, having something like an actual kind of performance is kind of what they generally like to see. And it doesn't have to be too fancy or anything, you know, just writing to them saying, hey, this is me. I think what I've kind of seen in recent times is a lot of agents might want to see kind of a bit about you and your, not necessarily your personal life, that's not really what I mean, but in terms of like what makes you different as well, because that sounds really cheesy, but like what makes you, I don't know, what makes you tick? What kind of things do you want to do when you leave? What kind of performer do you think that you might want to be when you leave? Like for me, for example, I knew that going to the school that I went to, I would never be seen for, I'm trying to think, 42nd Street, for example. So there would be no point in me, even if my dream show was to be in 42nd Street. I mean, I'm a terrible tap dancer and I'm also not a great dancer. So that's going to be pipe dream stuff. So I wouldn't email an agent being like, hey, I love musicals. I want to be in 42nd Street, because as much as you might want to, you also want to kind of figure out things that are realistic for you to do. And, you know, for me, I'm kind of like more of a, not classical, but, you know, kind of like all my jobs have been more kind of like golden age musicals, things like that, you know. So it's kind of important to learn, not that you can't do more than one thing, but it's important to learn what makes you special and different. And, you know, because there are so many people out there at the end of the day, there's so many performers. And I think getting that into your email and saying, look, hey, I love this show, I love this kind of music, I can bring this to the table, that's already your kind of first step into getting them interested. And then if you do want to kind of find yourself trying to get into shows that are on, I would really recommend, I mean, this is quite hard because this is when kind of financial things get in the way, unfortunately, but I would really recommend looking at off West End fringe theatre, that kind of stuff, because they're the kind of jobs that as a graduate, not that you're more likely to get, but, you know, there are people when they get to a certain age, when they're maybe in their 30s or 40s or whatever, they might have a family to support, or they might have kind of other commitments, houses or whatever that they need to pay for. And this kind of fringe theatre that doesn't necessarily tend to be paid as well as the West End or tours or anything like that, there tends to be maybe slightly less demand. And those, I think, are the perfect opportunities for you to email them and get into shows like that, for then agents to be able to come and see you. And also, personally, like that job that I said the picture is of me at the beginning, that show tune, that was a fringe theatre at the Union Theatre in London. And I know we got paid hardly anything for it, but actually it was the most like satisfying experience for me, because I got to play a lead role, which was incredible. You know, the chances of getting a lead role in the West End are even slimmer than getting into the West End in the first place. So that was kind of like fun in itself. And also creatively, they're much more exciting in some ways, because, you know, I got to work with the director, I got to work with the choreographer. It was more of a dialogue in terms of, this is where we all want the show to go, rather than, you know, this person has stood on this spot on the stage for the last 25 years, so you then have to stand on that same spot again for the next year of your contract or whatever. So yeah.
So Alexandra, you've kind of, the email thing, the contacting thing, it sounds like it's about packaging yourself in a way which is like instantly accessible. So you're not fluffing it up with loads of, my name is da 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 da, these are my hobbies, yada 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 yada. You're being really clear and concise, and you've included your footage and your headshots and stuff in the email, so they have no work to do, because an agent might get, I don't know how many emails and you know, an agent might get in a day, but so you kind of making it easy for them to get the information they want.
Absolutely, right? Yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, you know, they get however many emails, probably a day, a week, a month, or whatever. So
and would you like copy files in, or would you put it in like a YouTube like a YouTube playlist, or would you like copy the pictures in directly, or like what would you recommend?
Well, this is when things kind of are a little bit of not a grey area, but for example, like a lot of the criteria for agents accepting submissions is to be on Spotlight. I don't know if kind of your lecturers and stuff have talked about that before. So being on Spotlight is a perfect example where you set up your account, you know, you put your pictures on, you can put your videos on, you know, you put your height, your hair color, eye color, your credits, where you trained, your voice type, your voice range, what kind of dancing you can do, blah, 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 etc. But unfortunately, sometimes as university students, it's quite hard to get onto Spotlight because Spotlight will only necessarily accept you if you went to an accredited drama school or you have enough professional credits to, I don't know, not deem yourself kind of worthy, but whatever they have their reasons for that's what they do. So I guess from your guys' perspective, being university students, I'm not sure how easy or how difficult that might be. And normally an agent would just say, okay, send me your Spotlight link. You'd send the link to your Spotlight and they'd be able to view everything on there. But in this case, I would suggest that you have your CV as like, I don't know, a PDF file. You have your photos attached as whatever the thing is, JPEG or whatever. And then I would probably suggest sending a link for the videos rather than a file of your video, because I think I've seen before that they've said that like link files, large files that are videos can kind of clog up their inbox or whatever. I mean, you can tell that I'm really not technologically advanced here, but I think that's kind of generally the idea, you know, make yourself a private YouTube link that only certain people can view or whatever, send it to them. They literally, all they have to do is your CV is there, your picture's there, click on the link, done, and they can see everything. And then all they have to do is send an email back if they want to meet you or they want to come and see what you're in, or if they want to just kind of, I mean, again, at the moment it's quite difficult because everything would have to be kind of virtual, but as far as I'm aware, people are still kind of planning ahead for what's going to happen. You know, there's this big kind of like, we will be back explosion thing, hopefully from the spring. So I wouldn't let that discourage you, you know, kind of the situation that we're in now, because the economy has proven that, you know, the theatre brings in billions of pounds to the kind of UK economy. So I'm sure that will be back as soon as possible.
Yeah, and there are plenty of very, very wealthy people who love the theatre and things like that who have been backing to kind of keep things going. So, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wonder, before we move on to the next part, if Sarah or Georgina or Sophie have any questions based on what we've talked about so far.
I was just going to ask about, because it's something that's always bugged me and always been on my mind, but like social media following, especially in this day and age. What's your like advice for that? Like, is it okay to like build up an online persona, or does it really matter as much? What are your thoughts?
That's a really difficult question, because that is something that I have thought about a lot myself. I'm trying to be careful with kind of how I phrase this, but like, I think that, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with building a social media presence. If you want to do that and that's how you feel that like you think that you have a market for there and you know how to do it well, then go for it, go ahead. You know, I have so many friends that are like incredible singers that put their songs on Instagram and they get so many views, and that's fantastic. For me personally, that's not kind of what I've done. Like I said, I'm not really a techie person. You know, I like to scroll on Instagram just to see what other people are doing, connect with my friends or whatever. And I think potentially there is, unfortunately, maybe a little bit of a culture that might be starting to happen in some parts of the industry where social media following does matter to some casting directors, and it does matter to some producers, and it does matter to some shows, you know, much like kind of stunt casting, you know, putting a celebrity into a show, because to them, the more people that see, I don't know, X person who was on X reality show put on Instagram, I'm going to be in this show, that's going to get bums on seats for them. That's going to get, you know, tickets sold. But that being said, the majority of the time, I don't think it will hugely directly influence your chances of getting auditions, getting jobs, etc. Or at least that's me maybe being optimistic with my my lack of followers on Instagram or whatever.
It's probably about professionalism, isn't it? It's about what you put out there, and the people who are successful at that, like musicians and performers who are successful at it, like curate their personality. And part of that is their private life as well. So it's fine, you know, mixing it all together. You know, performers, you mix your private and your professional life, don't you? But I can imagine it being really easy for positive following to flip into negative following, you know, based on a throwaway comment or something like that. So if you are like going for your online persona, and I mean, you know, I'm nearly 40, and I struggle to see how people can have tens of thousands of followers. I don't know if you're on Instagram, Sarah Kate, but I imagine if you are, you've probably got 1,500 followers without even barely trying.
I mean, it's definitely not the case. It's more so, I guess it's just the pressure as well, the social pressure, I think, especially not to my generation, but like everyone has like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and especially in this industry, it's like the one way that you can actually like showcase like what you have, instead of like anyone can go to your profile, and if you have like songs or like snippets of performances, you can put it on there. But it's also like, how much do people want to see you in your private life as well, because it's so much of a personality?
Yeah,
it could go either way, I guess, couldn't it? I'm guessing if it's like a character role, which is, you know, a comedy role or something, and they see you being really funny in your private Instagram, I imagine that would be a positive. But if it's seeing you like, you know, really serious role, and then that might color people's perceptions. So I don't know, I guess it could go either way. What's your feeling, Alex?
This is not confirmed or denied, but I've heard a rumor once that my friend told me that there were two girls who were down to the final two for, well, I don't know what job it was, but it was a lead part. And the casting team couldn't decide. They were like, we love both of them. We think they'll both bring fantastic things to the role. And someone went, well, how are we going to decide? And somebody piped up and said, okay, well, let's see how many followers they have on Twitter or Instagram. I don't know which one. And they said, let's just go with the one that has more followers. And, you know, like I said, I don't know if that's completely 100% true, but that's kind of
I'd say it's believable though, isn't it? It's like, it doesn't surprise me that something like that has happened.
Yeah. And you know, if you think about things like Six, for example, the show, they encourage people to film the show, the mega mix at the end of the show, and put it on their social media and stuff. And you know, those girls have got like millions of followers on Instagram now, I think, you know, all around the world, because the show has exploded, and so rightly it should have done. But I think that's kind of probably a bit of a, I don't know, I would feel a lot of pressure from that, that's for sure. I don't think I'd post anything if I knew I had millions of followers on Instagram. But yeah, a really long answer to your question is, I don't think it will ever hurt you to want to do that if that's what you want to do. And like I said, you enjoy it. But if you don't do it, I think the story that I said about the two girls is a rare thing. I don't think certainly I've never experienced a situation where someone's ever asked me how many followers I've had or anything like that. So yeah, that's the age we live in. Does anyone else have any questions so far? What they want to?
Hello. I was wondering if I could ask, you said about like swinging and like getting in through being a swing for a show. Do you need to ask your agent to put you forward for those sort of jobs, especially if you're a new performer, or will they do it naturally?
So that job in particular, I didn't actually know was even auditioning. So that was a situation where my agent already had people attached to the show, and she submitted me for that job, and that's how I got the audition. But there might be times where you think like, oh, this show is coming up, I've heard that it's going to happen, can you please submit me for it? Especially if it's something that maybe your agent may or may not have thought that you would be interested in, or I don't know. It works the other way around as well. You know, if there's something that there are some people who don't want to do cruises, for example. That's just not the life that they want to do. They don't want to go away for a whole year, and they don't want to live on a ship. And that is totally fine. Everyone's got their own choices and decisions they want to make. So I think having that dialogue with your agent is really important, in terms of like, you know, that's something you can talk about when you first meet them as well, before you sign with them or whatever. You can kind of say, look, this is the kind of, much like I said earlier on, this is the kind of performer I want to be, blah, blah, blah. But I think that, yeah, it's good to have that conversation, and good to say like, oh, I know this job is coming up. I'd really love to be submitted for it. Or like, if you want to do something really specific, like be a swing, and you think that you've got the right brain for that, and you think that you would really thrive in it and you would really enjoy it, then by all means go and say, yeah, I want to do that. Because like I said, they may have submitted you for ensemble member 1, and you might be like, oh, actually, I think that I could do this instead. Or they might not have heard you sing necessarily every kind of style that you can sing, so they might not necessarily consider you as a lyrical soprano or something. I don't know, there's lots of things that maybe you might fit into that. Or if you have kind of a random niche special skill that you can kind of put on your spotlight or tell them about, you never know, because that might work to your advantage as well. I don't know if we've actually even covered kind of like what actually a swing is, but for those who may not know, it's a swing is usually in most shows, it would be maybe someone who's more movement based. Like a swing in a dance show, they would learn pretty much 10 ensemble tracks, and when somebody in the ensemble or is either understudying for somebody or they go off sick, the swing comes in and they do one of the 10 different tracks that may be needed. And they might also understudy some of the main parts as well. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I was gonna talk about. One thing I do want to say, just because I don't know if, I mean, there's lots of different kind of aspects to this, but if you did want to think about kind of further study after university as well, in a drama school, that's always an option. I mean, it's a big commitment financially for sure, and it's obviously another year of training. But, you know, I can't kind of say enough how much I love my time at RAM, and that's kind of technically marketed as a postgraduate course. I know that Central School of Speech and Drama have a good couple of MA courses. It's something else.
What did you take away from your time at RAM? Like, because I presume you took away, you know, some great vocal training. I've heard you sing, fantastic voice, dancing, acting, all of those things that our guys get here at Winchester, but probably to another level, I'm guessing, the intensity of it. What other things did you get from it? I'm trying to think about like maybe the networks of people, or the opportunities, or the doors opening and those kind of things. What other things did you get from your time? I
certainly think a network thing is definitely something you can take from it. You know, the kind of people that might come in as either guest teachers, or you know, they will often run kind of towards the end of your year auditions. Even, you know, you might have the casting director from Les Mis or the musical director from Les Mis come in and audition everybody in the year, and you know, if they like you, you might get a job from that. You know, that's a very good job to get, you know. But also in terms of like the teachers themselves, and you know, when I went to RAM, we had 2 musical directors as well, who they had a musical direction course, and they would often go and work in the industry too, and they would often audition people that they worked with when they were in their masters as well. So I think, yeah, I think in terms of casting directors, in terms of directors, for sure, we had a lot of directors come in, and a couple of times we had people who would go into jobs that they were directing kind of professionally, just as a direct contact from being there. And I suppose sometimes the name of having a specific school or something might help as well. I'm not saying that Winchester doesn't have that, but you know, there are certain kind of assumptions that come with certain schools, like for example, Arts Educational School. They are fantastic. They are a triple threat, you know, amazing dancers, singers and actors come from there. Royal Academy of Music, obviously, like I said, they know that they're going to get singers from that kind of place. Or if you wanted to do, I know you said someone was on the acting course, you know, if you wanted to do a postgraduate course at somewhere like RADA or LAMDA and things like that, you know, there is a little bit of extra, maybe kind of, I don't want to say prestige, that's not the right word, but they just have something that maybe would help you get your foot in the door even more. As well as, like I said, the agents kind of coming to them, the casting directors coming to them, the directors coming to them in those schools as well. But I mean, obviously, like I said, it's a huge commitment financially and time as well. So it's something that I would advocate, but also I completely understand that, you know, you've spent 3 years working really hard, and that's a separate option. You know, there's no reason why you can't kind of use your time and that you've spent at Winchester to get an agent and to get into shows as well.
So the other day when we were kind of chatting about this, Alex, we were talking a bit about how you negotiated the difficult few years after graduation. You know, we were kind of comparing experiences about how you come out of uni or you come out of music or college, or like RAM for you, and you've got a dream you want to chase, but the rent doesn't just get paid automatically. So you then have to build some kind of life that allows you to both chase your dream, preserve your mental health, and also pay all of your bills. So like, that's really tricky because you've got to dedicate time to keep your practice. You've got to dedicate time for your social life so you don't go crazy. And you also need to pay the bills. So how did you negotiate that kind of period of time straight after graduation that enabled you to keep chasing the dream whilst not living on the street, basically? How did you manage that?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough. It was really tough. I'm not going to lie. You know, there were times when, well, basically the first job that I got, which I think is a fantastic job for graduates to have, I worked front of house in theatres in the West End. You know, they're not the most exciting jobs necessarily. And unfortunately, you are watching people perform on stage doing what you want to do every night, kind of sitting there thinking, oh, when's it my turn, you know? But you're working in the evenings. Most auditions will happen during the day, and certainly rehearsals will happen during the day. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you've got into a fringe production, but it's not as well paid as something that is in the West End, for example, you know, you can try and see if you can negotiate maybe working in the evenings as well. But yeah, it was really tough. You know, I've had so many different jobs, like working in coffee shops, working front of house, teaching kids at places like Stagecoach and stuff like that. All sorts of working in telesales. And it is really difficult. And, you know, it's actually kind of part of the reason, like I said, why I'm here now at Winchester, because, you know, I kind of got to a point where the kind of, I don't want to say rat race, that's not really the right expression, but the kind of running from one job to another, kind of having to leave. Often you might find yourself in a situation where, like when I got the girls, for example, I was working front of house in a theatre and I started rehearsals 2 weeks later. So sometimes you do have to kind of let those workplaces down as well. You kind of have to say to them, look, you know, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to leave next week. I've got to go, you know. And that can sometimes put you in a bit of a difficult situation as well, because you might actually find that you've got a job that you really enjoy. You know, I've got some friends that are like, they work nannying, and they've had to say to people like, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't look after your children again after next week. And that can be really tough. So, you know, those jobs are there. There are plenty of them. But I would also say, if you can, if you have other skills, like, or other passions, for example, like I know I've got a lot of friends who are really into fitness and things like that, and they work in gyms or they work as personal trainers. That's just one kind of random example. But if you do have something else that you really enjoy and you can go back to, I would say really kind of stick with that too, because, you know, the most important thing, like you said, is kind of keeping sane and keeping kind of something going that you also enjoy that's not going to kind of make you miserable day to day, thinking, oh, when's the next audition coming, or, you know, when's my big break going to happen? Because, you know, you might get your big break at 22, and then you might not get another big break until you're 35. You know, there are also those kind of situations as well. You know, a job in the West End doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be working consistently in the West End for the rest of your career, you know. So it's tough. There's not really kind of one answer for that, but I would say that try and find yourself something that you really enjoy and are also good at, that you can kind of, I don't want to say fall back on, because I don't really like the idea of necessarily having like a plan B, because
it's like a portfolio, isn't it? It's like a mesh, so you have one thing that supports the other. Is that partly why you've come to do education studies, because you've got this incredible skill, music theatre and experience, and now you're kind of learning about like teaching, so you can kind of mesh those two together?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I want to go on, it's going to be quite probably a long time away, and I don't know if this is going to stick, but I'd like to go on and teach in universities and drama schools. And, you know, without a degree, without a master's, sometimes without even a PhD, you can't do those things. So when, like I said, coronavirus hit, that was kind of the time for me to go, okay, how can I use everything I've got with something I really enjoy for the future? Yeah,
that's really interesting, because plenty of people, you know, chase a dream and don't have another thing to kind of go alongside it that facilitates, you know, something else in the future. So we've got a couple more minutes. There's another session starting at 6, which if you guys want to stay, it's a vocal session with one of a professional singer, Greg, who's from Apollo 5. They're a fantastic choir. He's a really great workshop leader. But before that starts, has anyone got any other questions for Alex before we kind of wrap up? We've got 5 minutes or so, and I know Alex has said that if anyone wants to get in touch with her as well, then you can do that. Maybe you pop your email in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I'm going to pop that down.
Yeah, so has anyone got any other questions that you want to ask now? Maybe it's one of those things, isn't it, where you get to the end and you think, I should have asked that. Yeah. So,
and also like there's things that I probably feel like I've written down that I'd want to say as well. So, you know, time runs away as well, doesn't it? So yeah, I'll put my email address, and like, I know we were talking about social media, but sometimes sending a message on Instagram or whatever is a bit easier than sending an email. So I'll put those kind of things in the chat. And if you want to get in touch with me, ask me anything, you know, even if you want to kind of virtually meet for a coffee or whatever, I'm totally up for that. That'd be really nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's nice to be able to share things as well around as well, you know, likewise at the music centre, you know, when people get in touch with us and say, I've got this thing coming up, can somebody, you know, can I come and sing to you, just to kind of double check? I'm sure you'd be up for that as well, Alex, to like help people, you know, sounding board.
100%.
Yeah, how it comes across. Yeah, okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Alex, everyone. Thanks so much for coming along and
Thank you.
yeah, helping us run this session. You might have seen that we've got another music theatre focus one tomorrow with Gary Jordan, who's Zazu in Lion King. I had a great chat with him today. If it's on our Facebook page if you want to see what we talked about, but you know, he's gonna do I guess because he's, you know, way into his 40s now. Shh, don't tell anyone. You know, so he's kind of doing a little retrospective and talk of similar things to you've talked about, Alexandra, but just from a different point of view. So that's, have you guys seen Lion King the musical? Have you guys seen it? I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's magical.
It's incredible.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, he sent me a link of like an interview thing they did as part of lockdown, and I was looking through it, and it's like, you know, oh, man, yeah, it looks pretty spectacular. All the puppets and everything, pretty amazing. Yeah, nice. Well, I'm going to officially close, and other people are arriving to the 6 o'clock. But if anyone wants to chat or anything, or go and then come back, if you want to come back for the vocal session at 6 and do. Otherwise, have a very good rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys. I'm just going to put my stuff in the chat as well. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Okay then.
Have a good evening.